Now, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, G-Man Aviation. Now in today's video, we are back in the flight simulator today. We're going to be checking out a interesting concept plane called the Heart Aerospace ES-30. Now, in this plane, you can see it looks kind of like a smaller ATR little turboprop airplane, kind of like a CRJ or an ERJ without the turbofan engines, with more of a turboprop engine with these different types of engines here. Now, if you've noticed, this plane actually has 4 engines. Now, you can see that these two middle ones, number 2 and number 3 engine, actually have a larger wing, a larger propeller design on the wings. Now, this is an over-wing design over the body of the aircraft. You can see how big this prop actually is compared to this smaller one over here. Now, we can just open all the stuff, of course, here in the Flight Simulator 2024. We do our walkarounds, take off our static port covers and our pitot 2 covers, and you can see this interesting concept. So the Heart Aerospace ES-30 is actually an electric hybrid plane. We're going to be checking out Heart Aerospace's website to see what I'm talking about. Let's get into it. Now, here on Heart Aerospace's website, you can see this is not just a airplane model in the flight simulator. This is a concept plane that is being produced for real air travel and real flight. Now, you can see actually here, you can see the 2 larger props that I was talking about earlier. You can see number 2 and 3 engine have larger props. Now, these are the electric engines. Now, engines number 1 and 4 are standard combustion fuel engines using jet fuel that you have to pay a lot of money for, and other types of costs like that, and also limiting range. So, electrifying regional air travel, the ES-30. Now, you can see this is their very nice website here, and you can see their goals are kind of climate. So, with this plane, they're hoping that you can have 0 CO2 emissions on shorter, small routes. So, only using these 2 engines, 2 and 3, as electric engines and having these off. Now, it's a very interesting concept. Now, you can see it'll also improve costs for operators because you're no longer buying jet fuel or prices like that. Of course, jet fuel is very expensive. So this is kind of a concept of what it would look like flying. We'll check it out later in the flight simulator, but these are already your partners that want to buy this plane. United Airlines, you'll probably see these on the United Expresses when it comes out, and Air Canada. Again, these are the regional routes. Of course, there's a lot of few airlines that I don't know here, but also things like Saab, different planes like this. So let's check out the actual page and see more about what its kind of specs are. So the reserve hybrid model that we'll be looking at today can carry 30 passengers with 200 kilometers of all-electric range. So that's not using any combustion engines. Now, it has an 800-kilometer hybrid range, which is all engines, with 25 passengers, so less than the actual max passengers, and with a minimum runway length of 1,100 meters. But you can also see their target for putting this out is 2029. So you can also see that they are saying it can charge for only 30 minutes to get back up to 100%. Now, you can see this just shows the costs and how when batteries improve, range will improve, all things like that. So let's get into the flight simulator and check out this plane. So now that we have all of our things open, let's just go into the cockpit here, opening up this kind of regional style door. Now, if you look around the cockpit, it actually looks very minimalistic up front. You only have a little joystick here, master caution, accepts, and a stopwatch control. Now, also in here, we have our 4 engines, as you can see, along with our engines 1 and 4, engine condition, of course, for the fuel. Now, there are also, of course, all the other engines. The other 2 engines are just electric through high voltage batteries. So looking up at the upper panel here, you can see these are all of our high voltage batteries. And turn them on, you can actually hear the sound that they make when they're on. This actually is what will start the engines. Now, we could put on our batteries here. And here you can hear all the Garmin panels starting up here. This will start loading up with, of course, this very beautiful glass cockpit. Now, you can see here we have a map and our power settings here for, so this is our turbine engines, which show the amount of torque that they are producing. And this is our electric engines. You can see the high voltage battery capacity right now is at 100%. So let's just start up this plane already. Pretty easy to start up. You can just look in here and click. So this would be for the other engines, but you can just see, we can just turn on the master, and you can already see that our engines are starting up. And these are the electric engines, of course, so no fuel, no other type of waiting to start. It's already up here, already on. You can already see that they are available. It's absolutely crazy. So you can just take off like this, which we actually will do. But let's take a look into the cabin first, see how this cabin is modeled in the flight simulator, and kind of take a look at what we might see in the future. So here in the cabin, of course, you can see this kind of regional design, almost like your ERJs or your CRJs. You can see this just 2-1 configuration with kind of smaller seats. Not that many passengers can be on this plane. Now again, for regional travel, you have one lavatory, and it looks pretty nice. Pretty similar to regional jets now. So let's get this thing in the air and take off and see how this thing flies. Let's get into it. So here we are on the runway. We're actually going to take off with only our 2 engines here for, of course, just fully electric flying. So let's go full power on our 2 engines here. You can see our other engines are just sitting still. They might start turning as we get into the air, but that's just because of the way the air turns. So let's back up here. We'll see how we are going to start gaining some speed. We are now at 30 knots. We're starting our takeoff roll, of course. We're at Midway Airport. We'll actually be going to a few smaller airports later in the video. We're also about to get hit by a plane, so we'll see that in a second. We're actually getting hit by a CRJ, who just avoided us. We're at 50 knots. I don't know why it's actually so slow. Now, this is actually the interesting thing. You might actually need all 4 engines to take off, because we're only at 70 knots here. We're at the end of Midway's pretty long runway, and we're only at 70 knots here with absolutely 0 engine power coming out of the other engines. So I would actually assume, I thought that when I was going to take off that this was a little easier to, say, control. But yeah, we are off into the parking lots of Midway Airport. We just crashed because the other parts of the aircraft just do not have enough power. You might need all 4 engines. Now, this is probably the concept, is that most likely the 2 engines are only going to be used for flying. So you start with them on and turn them off once you're in mid-flight. Now you can tell that already we have our engines 1 and 4 are still off, and we are now flying much nicer with only 2 engines. So you can still see they look like they're on, but they're not. You can see over here the torque is only number 1. So let's go to a few other airports. Let's go to Saba Island, which is the smallest commercial runway in the world, and we will test out how this plane can land. Let's get into it. So here we are coming into Saba Island here with our lovely ES-30. Now we have gone pretty much full idle. We're not going to try to crash here, of course, but we're going to try to make a semi-successful landing. Of course, just touching down above the runway and still being able to fully stop. Now this is actually not too bad of a landing here. We'll go full reverse thrust, and this plane is definitely able to stop here. You can see that was not too bad of a landing. Of course, usually turboprop engines do have a better reverse thrust capability. So that's a very interesting, very useful part for this plane. Say you were doing flights between St. Martin and Saba, you could take the Heart Aerospace and actually save out on a lot of money from the gas. So let's try to take off here from Saba Island and see how it actually is able to take off. Of course, we'll use all 4 engines this time, and we'll also back up a little more towards the end of the runway to allow us to have full runway potential. So So now we are going to do a static takeoff. You can see that our instruments are alive here, but they're kind of just really dim and dark. So they're being a little wonky right now. But we can still see our main instrument. We will go flaps. We'll start with our flaps up and put them down as we go. So now that our engines are fully spooled up, you can see, let's just go full power here, and we will release the parking brake. All 4 engines you would definitely need to take off here. We have our gear going up, or our flaps going up right now, just to try to gain the most amount of speed. Now we're already at 60 knots. We're now going to put our flaps down to 2 and see if we can maybe take off. Oh, and that is a failure on the takeoff. So you'd be able to land the Heart Aerospace at the ES-30 lovely at Sava, but you would not be able to take off. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I believe if Heart Aerospace continues with their design and makes a little more stronger engines, that this plane would definitely be able to perform operations at Sava Airport. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have a great day.